Hi, my report is all about Plan and Acquire Resources by PMBOK Registered Guide 6 Edition. So, unless you plan to do all work on your project yourself, you're going to need to put a team together. That's not as easy as it sounds. You have to have people with the right mix of skill and expertise to make up a high performing team. You'll also need to be able to identify the acquire all the resources you'll need for the project success. So in this course, you'll learn or will learn how to develop a resource management plan. You'll also learn best practices for estimating and acquiring necessary resources, developing and managing the project team, and optimizing resources throughout the project. So, project resources need to be managed but with great care to achieve the best possible and result. Managing projects means putting together the right mix of skills and expertise to make up a high performing team. The 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 CAPM registered is an asset that will enhance your effectiveness in resource management. CAPM training will help you identify all the resources you'll need and aid you in planning how to use these resources to achieve project success. In this course, you'll learn how to plan resource management, and you'll also best practice for estimating and acquire necessary resource developing and managing the project team. So let's go to project resources and management overview. So managing the project team has three key aspects. Acquiring the right team member during the planning stage. Developing the members of the project team and ensuring the team performs at the best possible level, and managing changes to the project team throughout the life of the project. In addition to managing human resources, the project manager is responsible for acquiring and managing physical resources for the project. For example, effective project managing includes securing critical equipment and materials necessary for the project. One of the challenges related to managing resources for a project is that project teams are usually dynamic. So, another example is an organization may acquire many people for larger projects or farewell people for smaller projects. The project manager and project sponsor are always core member of the project management team. And next is inputs to plan resources management. So the inputs section contains the project charter, the project management plan that contains quality management and plan and scope baseline, the project documents that contain project schedule required documentation, risk register, and stakeholder. Um, excuse me. Register the enterprise environmental factors and the organizational process assets, the tools and techniques sections contains the expert judgment, data representation that contains hierarchical type charts, responsibility, assignment matrix, and text-oriented formats, organizational theory, and meetings. So the next is plan. Plan resource management tools and techniques. The tools and techniques used in the plan. Resources management process help clarify and communicate team members' roles and responsibilities. They saw ensure each work package as is assigned. So no work is overlooked and that all necessary resources are considered for tasks. Data representation techniques are very useful for this. Methods include hierarchical charts, a responsibility assignment matrix, and text-based format. Hierarchical charts display information graphically in a top-down format to visually depict positions and relationships. The organizational breakdown in structure and example of a hierarchy type format, it shows the positions and reporting relationships for the entire project. Team of a glance in a graphic top-down view. So the advantage of this tool is the speed at which it enables you to find information, and as long as you don't acquire a lot of detail. Another example of hierarchy chart is a resource breakdown structure that there are metric based responsibility charts that slow the link between work that must be performed and the project team members who are responsible for the work. So next is uh, RACI charts. So a responsibility assigned matrix, also known as RRC matrix or linear responsibility chart, describes the participation of various roles in completing tasks or deliverables for a project or business process. So one of four letters identifies each person's roles and responsibilities. So the first one is the letter R identifies the person who knows sorry, identify the person who owns an activity or is responsible for performing the work it includes. The letter A is here identifies who must sign off or approve work before it is effective. In other words, person who is accountable for successful completion of a deliverable or work package. The next letter C. The letter C identifies who has the information or the capability need to complete a deliverable or a work package. It shows who should be appropriate to provide input the work or to decisions that need to be made during an activity. And then the C is stands for consult. No? The letter I identifies who must be informed of the progress or result of an activity or of decisions associated with it. So this person doesn't necessarily need to be consulted before work on an activity starts. So the next one is output of plan resources management. So the first is the resource management plan, which documents the approach for managing resources throughout the life of the project. This plan becomes part of the overall project management plan, providing guidance on how project resources should be defined, managed, controlled, and eventually released. The resources management plan should include information of the identification of resources, acquiring resources, relevant project organization charts, guidance on project team, resources management training team, development methods, resources controls, and a recognition plan. So our example is for instance of project roles are software engineer, business analyst, and testing coordinator. Authority is the right to apply projects resources, use project funds, make decisions, or grant approvals. Team members' level of authority should match their another individual responsibilities. So for another instance of decision that need clear authority include deciding which method to use to complete an activity or how to respond to variances within the project. They may also include decisions on issues such as quality acceptance. The responsibility of project team member defines the work they expect to perform as part of completing the project activities. So the next is estimate activity resources process. The project manager also needs to determine the quality of each required resources. For instance, for how many concrete and how many construction workers are needed to build a foundation for a school building project. This information is important for scheduling and later or for estimating costs. The project manager needs to determine the skills sets that are required to perform each activity so appropriate human resources can be identified. The level of skills required will have an important impact on the budget. And for another instance, if the project requires technical drawings to be compiled, does this require an architect or is it something that a technical drafts person can do? Finally, the project manager needs to determine who will be filling the roles on the project team and if these people will be available when needed, vacation needs, leave schedules, other work obligations, and other projects are taken into consideration. So next is input to estimate activity resources. The first is the project management plan, which contains the resource management plan, which contains information about the level of accuracy you should aim for the duration estimates. It also outline the units of measure used in the schedule, the scope baseline. Also, within the project management plan, outline the project and product scope, which directly influence the what team and principal resources will be required to fulfill the project scope. Another input is project document, which include the task register, the activity list, activity attributes, the assumption log, cost, estimate, and resources calendars. For instance, the risk register list the identified risk events that may impact the project. So the next is the tools and techniques to estimate activity resources. So so uh, because it's not possible to predict the future, you never be totally accurate in identifying the resources that will be needed for project activities. However, by using wide range of tools and techniques, you can make the most of the information at your disposal to come up with the best possible estimates. So we have five tools uh, and techniques for estimate activity resources process. So first one is expert judgment, often specialized for knowledge of resourcing, estimating, or project planning is required. Project managers can use their own expert judgment when calculating what resources or what quantity of this will be needed. So the second one is alternative analysis, which is used to compare different ways of carrying out scheduled activities. Using alternative analysis, you could determine the best possible use of resources. For example, it may be possible to use staff members with different skills or expertise, other suppliers, or alternative equipment. Once you've selected the best alternative, you can quantify what resources required. So the third one is bottom-up estimating. So it is another useful technique. A flowchart display with new drag as the root node It's when you break a project into its component piece of work and then estimate the resources needed for each of the pieces. So the fourth is publish estimating data. So this is something that project managers in a lot of industries used to help them figure out how many resources they need. They rely on articles, books, journals, and periodicals that collect, analyze, and publish data from other people's project. So the number five is project management software. So software used for project planning, scheduling, resource allocation, and change management. Excuse me. It allows project managers, PMS, stakeholders, and use to control cost and manage budgeting, quality, management, and documentation, and also may be used as an administration system. So the next is the bottom-up estimating techniques. Bottom-up estimating techniques is a technique that involves estimations on a granular level for parts of a project. These are the aggregated to a total estimate for the entire project. It is often referred to as one of the most accurate ways of estimating. This is followed by more accurate estimates later in a project. So for instance, in a construction project, a front-end loader and a bulldozer are required for different tasks. If the tasks are to be done at the same time, two machine operators are needed. But if they can be done at different times, one operator can carry out both tasks. In this case, the hiring of operators is depend on whether the task must be done concurrently or not. So the next is estimating activity resources. So these requirements, no, describe the types and quantities of resources needed for each project activity. Resource requirements documentation generally contains several components. A description for each type of resources need for an activity should be included, such as trainees, marketing manager, and system manager. This includes human resources, materials, and facilities. You should also, excuse me, you should also identify the quantity required of each resource. This value can be specified in any measurement unit such as hours, days, or physical number of units required. Resources assumptions are important for to consider when devising the project schedule. Any relevant assumptions about the resource can be included. For example, resource availability, skills, or quality. You should also specify when each resources can be used. So dependencies, the factors should also be noted that may affect the availability of resources, and you should include the total resources needed for the activity. The resources totals are important in projecting schedule as a base from which to calculate the duration of the activity. The basics of estimates is another output of estimating. Activity resources. Documents should outline how estimates were derived and include the estimating methods used. Any resources used to develop estimates, any assumption associated with the estimate, any known constraints. Range is estimates. The confidence level and any risk that have influence on the estimates. The other two output of the estimate activity resource process are the resource breakdown, structure, and relevant documents updates. So the next is the resource breakdown structure. So the project manager will need to use the telephone to confirm postal address with the recipients, and a printing press will be needed for the final mass printing. The materials category records the consumable items that will be used in the project. This includes envelopes to hold the the brochures, address labels to go on the envelopes, and postage stamps for sending to recipients. In another scenario, a project manager is working on a one-day workshop on effective advertising techniques. So, the next is inputs to acquired resources. The inputs section contains the project management plan that contain resource management plan, procurement management plan, and cost baseline. The project document that contain project schedule, resources calendars, resources requirements, and stakeholder register. The enterprise environmental factors and the organizational process assets. The tools and techniques section contains decision making that contains multi-criteria decisions analysis, enterprise and team skills that contains negotiation, presignment, and virtual teams. So the next is tools and techniques to acquire resources. So once you have information about the resource you need to manage a project to successful completion, you can use the tools and technique of the acquired resources process to ensure that the process of acquiring your resources goes smoothly. Two techniques typically used for acquiring staff in-house or are pre-assigned and negotiation. One effective technique is assignment. Pre-assignment involves selecting project resources in advance. This occurs if particular workers have an unique expertise or skills, if a client has request a specific resources, or if someone has been promised involved in a project. So when we negotiating, be sure to discuss this these skills and personal characteristics of the team members you want to on your project. For instance, say many of the staff members needed for a project are due to be engaged in other important projects. The project manager negotiates to get the individual released from these projects using the size and importance of the project as a bargaining tool. So the next is negotiating to acquire resources. So there are times when you need to negotiate with other managers within your organization in order to acquire the project team members you need. You may also need to negotiate with external vendors of for a particular material or equipment delivery. In a specific topic, I'm going to offer some basic step you can follow to be an ace negotiator. First, first of all, you need to pick your dream team. So the next is output of acquired resources. So this is acquiring appropriate resources is a huge task. So it's no surprise that the process results in many inputs. There are 7 in total. The first output is project team assignments. Team assignments are finalized in your PMIS application. Perhaps published in a project team directory. They may also be documented in memos and plan RACI matrices and in process, schedule, and resources calendars. So in this example, the project manager has created a project directory. It lists all project members, including each member's functional area or company if they are contracted, their role within the project, and their contract details. So this resources calendar shows that shows when team members are available and when they are not. For example, Michael Cassidy is available in June but not in July or August. So this calendar also indicates when material resources and particular skills resources are required. Identifying skill resources requirements in a resource calendar can be used if, for instance, a team member suddenly becomes unavailable, then you need to find a replacement with them. Equivalent skills to work at the required times. Project management plan updates are another output of acquiring resources. For instance, you will need to record final resource assignments in the resources management plan, and any changes to resource cost should be reflect in the cost baseline. You'll update relevant project documents. So that is my report about the plan and acquire resources. So that's all. Thank you.